Imagine this. It's 1955. You walk into a diner, order a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake. And the bill? Just under $1. A brand new car? Maybe $1,800. A house? You could buy a home for the price of a used car today. Fast forward to now, and everything's changed. Prices have soared. Wages have shifted, and the value of $1 isn't what it used to be. So today we're going to take a journey through time, comparing the cost of everyday life then and now, unpacking why prices have changed, and what it all means for our wallets and our future. Get ready to feel nostalgic, maybe a little shocked, and definitely curious. Because the numbers tell a story, and it's one that affects all of us.
Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And Stoney.
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah,
it's
pretty
going.
good.
That was an opening.
Yeah.
I like that.
But, you know,
You got me curious already. I'm so curious.
You know, if I'm not mistaken, the idea for this origin of this podcast, I believe, came from my girlfriend. She suggested to me one time, said, y'all need to do a podcast on maybe kind of what things used to cost or something like that. I forget exactly the conversation we had. I said, yeah, I'll throw it, I'll bring that up. Maybe that may be fun to talk about. So, well, everybody, here we are. We're talking about...
we do listen to our listeners.
We do.
You listen to us, and we listen to you.
Yeah, we thought this would be a fun little topic to talk about, considering the last few topics have been kind of deep and heavy.
Well, it fits right into the show. We're a generational show.
Yeah.
And, it fits right into what we do and our conversations about life. And it's when you look at these numbers and the percentages of it, because I did that. I have some graphs. I have some charts with the actual percent increase from Boomer to Gen X to Millennial, and Millennial to Gen Z.
Oh, that'd be great. I've been looking forward to hearing that.
And it's the actual percent. And I just picked the top 20 things that a household buys.
Right.
Because that's rabbit hole after rabbit hole after and squirrel. And so I just said, what are the top 20 things that you would buy in a household? And I went from there. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah. Even in my, I me being the youngest one here, it's still, even in my lifetime, I feel like things have shifted. I know, obviously, there's a reason because of, record inflation and all this other stuff, but it's crazy to think about even in just the past few decades how things have shifted.
Yeah, inflation in the U.S. is about 3%, but it can spike higher. And that's kind of an average.
Right.
I think according to these numbers I'm having here, it reached 8% in 2022. Now, we all remember what was going on at that time.
The Biden crime family.
The Biden
going
stuff.
on at that time.
And when times are good, it can fall below by 2%, which is, that means really good. It means your dollar's buying.
Right.
A lot more. So it's interesting. Of what we can buy now versus what we used to be able to buy.
Yeah.
And I found this pretty interesting. A dollar in 1913 buys what $30 today gets you.
Wow.
That's how much. So the dollar has lost 96% of its buying power since 1913.
I can remember when I was young and we had a family of 5. My mother would go to, what's that? What was the store from Canada before Costco and
Superstore?
Superstore.
Yeah.
I remember the Superstore.
We would each, my mom had to operate on a monthly budget, And the only other little money she got were weekly for eggs and milk.
Okay.
Everything else, we even bought sides of beef that went in the big freezer that was supposed to last a month. She would spend $200 and something. Each kid had a cart full of food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Each kid, and this is back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Now, $200 gets you like 4 bags.
Yeah, yeah.
The Walmart bags.
Maybe a
if
week or
that
two.
full,
Yeah. Yeah.
full. That's it.
Yeah, I remember. Do y'all remember Burger Chef?
No.
It was like a McDonald's
Okay,
type
okay,
of
yeah,
place. I went there a lot as a kid, and I remember hamburger, French fries, and a drink was about $3.25.
Wow.
And that was back. That would have been back in the early '80s, maybe even late '70s.
Right.
So I mean,
I was
now,
thinking.
because I really don't eat at fast food places really much anymore. I don't know what prices are at McDonald's anymore, or Burger King.
Oh
or
gosh!
whatever
I mean, I think you could probably I think I took my friend out to go to like a Sonic, or like something like that, and I want to say I bought their food, and I think I spent like $28.
And this was at a
Yeah.
McDonald's.
Oh yeah, like a fast food place. Like
Unbelievable! I can't imagine that.
That's what you said. You said $1 is about like $30
Yeah.
equivalent. And I was like, I'm pretty sure like I can buy food for myself and someone else for like 20 something, $30, depending on where you go. Like I think it may be different. And again, depending on where you're at in the U.S., your prices may vary. But I think for like $30, you and another person could eat like a lunch. You know, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
But,
that's about right.
so that's. When you said that, I was like, "That's crazy that that how I could eat for 50 cents back in 1913."
In 1980, $1 was the equivalent of what $3.65 is today.
That's like it's like a soda. I think you could probably buy
Was about
you buy Coke for
baby
$30.
boomers, eggs 61 cents, Gen X $1, millennials $1.66, Gen Z $2.50, and that's not counting the last, the Biden crime family killing, 250 million chickens and ready to go up. But like eggs, from Boomer to Gen X, the price increase was 65.57. From Gen X to Millennial was 64.36. And from Millennial to Gen Z is 50.6%.
Wow.
I mean, that's substantial, when you think about it. I mean, I can remember as a kid gasoline being 36, 37 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
I remember my mom had told me this around the time I was born in like the mid 90s, that I think my grandmother had said something about how if price goes over $1, I'm not gonna drive anymore, because it was hovering around 90 cents in the mid 90s or so, late 90s.
So they say gasoline, baby boomers, 36%. I mean 36 cents.
Okay.
Gen X was $1.15 in 1990. Millennials $2.79 2010. And Gen Z was $4.90 in 2022.
$4.90? Where in the that's ridiculous.
That's the average price across the
you're
country.
You're right, and I believe it, because I think that some big cities have.
So gasoline percentage increase: Boomer to Gen X, 219%. Gen X to Millennial, 142%, and Millennial to Gen Z is 75%.
What was that again?
The percents,
the
percent increase from one generation to the next, and this is average stuff.
It's all macro.
I didn't want to get that far in the weeds. I just did some kind of rough.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. To me, what I find fascinating is, we were talking about $1 to $30 in 1913. I'm kind of looking at the chart, seeing there's a big jump. Like, for example, 1913 to 1950. So from 1913, it went from $1 would equal $30.11 today.
Wow.
In 1950, it was $1 for $12.38 today.
So almost half.
And then
more.
by 1980, It's $1 for $3.65 today. So there's a huge drop at that time from 1950 to 1980. And then when you get to 2000, it's $1 would equivalent to $1.79 today.
Wow.
So it is, you could see, and I'm going to tell you where a lot of this is coming from. What are some of the big things that happened between 1980 and 2000? What did 1980 kick off as far as our economy is concerned?
A lot of things that happened around that time.
Star Wars.
Well, yeah.
That's not wrong.
I saw it at the drive-in movie
No,
theater.
I meant Ronald Reagan and his.
You talk about SDI.
Yeah.
No, the
Oh.
Strategic Defense
Yeah.
Initiative.
Uh-huh.
No, actually,
It was called Star Wars.
What I'm alluding to is the exporting of jobs.
Really?
Okay.
At
Yep.
that point in time, yes.
Interesting.
That is when you start seeing manufacturing leaving the United States and going to overseas.
Wow.
It was during that time, and you can see that how that affects, how that probably affected that. Now, there's a lot of other issues of what why has the dollar declined? I mean, there are a lot of different examples of what's going on. Inflation has always existed, and sometimes you need to have a little bit of inflation.
Right.
That's actually a sign of a healthy economy. So there's nothing wrong with inflation. You just got to keep it in check. Another big thing, the expansion of the money supply. As we all know, and I'll talk about that, in 71, the United States got off the gold standard.
Okay.
So we basically, the dollar became what they call a fiat currency.
Right.
Okay. It was just basically backed by government trust. It's not a physical commodity.
Right. And you said that was in the 70s that happened?
71.
71. Okay.
The Federal Reserve creates money to stimulate the economy. You always hear talk about on the news, that they're going to go print money. Where the federal government can do that, states can't do that. States have to balance their budget every year. The federal government can actually deficit spend.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because more money in circulation without a proportional increase in goods and services causes prices to rise. More dollars chasing the same goods lead to reduced dollar value.
Right.
That's why a lot of that talk was during the stimulus package. They pushed a lot of cash into the economy.
A lot of money.
So there's a lot of people have a lot of money, and so what does that do? Everybody starts raising their prices. So it's and also they gave the government, because of in 71 with the U.S. dollar not being backed by gold. What does that enable the government to do? It gives it a lot more freedom to print more cash.
But what
Whereas
happened?
before they couldn't.
Right.
Think about when COVID happened and they gave you the stimulus checks. What happened the very next day?
People were buying stuff.
Okay. But
Yeah.
what happened the very next day?
After that?
No, that same day. Yes, people went and bought stuff. But what also happened the very next day?
What?
Prices went up.
Yep.
Oh, of course.
5%,
Yeah, because
6%,
because vendors
10%.
Oh, yeah.
Look, they got free money.
Exactly, because retailers saying, hey, they got money to spend. We can raise prices.
We can make more money. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that causes kind of a cascading effect.
That's inflation.
When when money's a little bit more scarce, people then don't spend. Then the supply chains adjust.
Yeah.
Items become a lot more scarce, and things kind of start balancing out. So
everyone's got to make money, and if no one's buying anything, no one's making money. So we got to start.
Yeah, I mean we got our debt. I mean,
gosh,
in 1980, our national debt was $1 trillion. It's 34 trillion.
34 trillion.
34 trillion in
wild.
debt. We are 34 trillion, and we're probably even higher. That's a 2024 number.
Wow.
I think we're probably now around 37 trillion in debt.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's what's being passed on to your grandchildren.
Right.
And your great-grandchildren. They're going to have to deal with this. It's getting right now to a point where such a large percentage of our gross national product, our percentage, is debt relief.
Oh,
It's paying the debt.
Yep.
I don't know what the I don't know what the fix is on this. I really don't. It worries me, but I mean, I look fondly back, looking at some of these things of what prices used to cost. A new car in 1950, $1,500.
$1,500
In 2024, the average, now this is based off Kelley Blue Book,
of course,
was $48,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
See, I broke that down a little bit. The baby boomers, 60 to 70s, a new car, average was $3,400, which in 2023 is an equivalent of $25,000.
Wow.
Gen X, 15,000, which is the equivalent of 36,000. Millennials, 28,000, which is $36,000.
Oh yeah.
And now Gen Z, the average car price in 2024 is $49,000.
That's crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you remember what movie they saw this coming? And I think it was in 84 or 87. They saw this coming. Greed is Good. Do you remember the
It
movie?
was Wall Street.
Wall Street. Yes. They saw it coming. When all of this started happening and how they were, what was it, Gordon Gecko or Greco or whatever was that? Michael, who was that? Richard Gere. And he says, greed is good. And they saw what was happening where these people would come in, large companies, and buy up these companies and dismantle them to make money.
Right.
Yep.
Because they were shipping the jobs elsewhere.
Right.
They saw it coming. And I can't remember. Was it 84 or 87?
I think it was
remember.
87.
Okay. In the 80s, we were talking about it. It started in the 80s. They
Started
saw
in the
it
80s.
coming, and they already had a movie about it.
Well, it to be honest with you, it started really with Richard Nixon going to China and opening up that market. I mean,
He opened the door for all of this.
He opened the door, and then by the time you get to 80, these companies started to see a way that they could reduce their costs.
Oh yeah.
Because ultimately, what are they trying to do is make more money for them and their shareholders, right? So the way you do that is you cut labor costs,
Yep.
okay? And if I can get the same job done and cut my cost by 50%, well, guess what you're going to do? If the option is there for you to do it.
Yeah.
Prior to Nixon opening up China, that market didn't
wasn't
exist.
there. It wasn't going to
there.
happen.
You had to make
Oh, you had a few things made in India and a couple of things made in Mexico,
Right.
but primarily it was made in America. And it was proud made in America.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the war and the national unity coming together with one goal.
For anybody who's got the retrospect bingo cards, I'm going to reference AI again.
Okay.
Is that same thing that's happening in modern times with AI? A lot of companies now are offloading work that they had like a person for. Now,
oh,
they
that's
have an AI person.
all I hear about
Yeah,
now
so-
is so you talk to these futurists and
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that. They basically say AI there's going to be in another 10 years. It's going to pretty much wipe out most entry level work.
Oh, yeah,
and
right.
so there's just not going to be a
Be-
whole
because-
lot for
because of
people
this-
to do
because of the
the
same thing-
machine can do it better,
exactly, and for no
and
money.
it doesn't have to sleep, and it's free.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Does it complain about being overworked? It doesn't have to sleep. It doesn't have to take breaks. You can just
Well, I think the arguments for a basic universal income are you're going to start. Yeah, I would. That is going to be the discussion
right.
in the next 10 years when people realize, well, what do we do?
What does work look like?
What does work look like? I mean, if I'm not going to, what am I supposed to do now
Right.
in society? I don't know. I mean, I it might be good for it might be a good
Yeah.
podcast.
How about a pair of jeans? When's the last time you bought a pair of jeans?
Probably
the last time I
Christmas?
spent like $120.
Okay.
I spent
So-
probably I think I got a $20 discount, so $80.
Oh, wow. All right. So, clothing, jeans, $7 in 1970, which was the equivalent of $53 in 2023.
Wow.
Gen X, $25. Millennials, $40. Gen Z, $50.
Yep.
Now, check this on the percentages. The percent increase from Boomer to Gen X was 257%.
Wow.
Gen X to Millennials, 60%. Millennial to Gen Z, 25%. But the kicker to that is in the 80s to 90s,
Yeah.
and I had a friend of mine, lived in California, was not one of the libtards there, but he did live in California. Do you know what his job was?
What's that?
He started a company, and he had 4 dirt piles or sand piles in his backyard.
Oh, no. I think I know where this is going.
Do you know what he did? He bought jeans, laid them. He had 4 piles. He laid pair of jeans on each pile.
Okay.
One pile was for 9mm. One pile was for shotgun.
Stop.
One pile was for 45, and one pile was for the AR-15. And he shot the jeans, and then tripled the price and sold them as shot jeans.
Wow.
And made tons of money and retired shooting jeans and selling them.
Hey, if there's a market,
that's the key to making money.
Yeah.
Finding
a niche. And filling it.
and doing it. Good for him.
Hey, go ahead.
Good. If you were stupid enough to buy holes in your jeans, I'm
Hey.
sorry, I never did that. But
That's okay.
I never
But
did
you,
that.
you were alive when it was popular.
I do remember.
You may
it.
not have been.
Well,
I
yeah.
do not recall wearing holy jeans at all, but I do remember people wearing them.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to pretend like I haven't had a couple of like slit knee jeans that, I had tore up while I was doing it in my musician days. So I'm not going to pretend like I didn't have those.
But they were they're very
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
Tons of people wearing them.
I didn't go too
So
crazy.
You did not partake.
I
Yeah,
did
right,
not.
right.
I was. I'm not saying I didn't do other stupid things, but that
Hey,
was one
Okay,
of the
what,
things I
did
did
you, what
do.
was stupid you did?
Uh-oh.
Well,
Come on.
I wore parachute pants.
There you
I
go.
knew it was
Yeah.
coming. I knew it was coming.
And I had a Michael Jackson jacket.
I was going to say
Nice.
that I had a Michael Jackson jacket.
I
too.
did.
Yes.
Nice.
I did.
That's cool.
I did. So yes, I did. I am a true child of the '80s. So
There you go.
yes.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Well, I came up in the late 90s, early 2000s. So denim jackets, denim vests, ripped jeans.
Oh yeah.
Vans,
Well, that was
yeah,
that.
so-
You know who really brought that in was that grunge rock.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
started probably in the early '90s.
Yeah.
That's kind of when that really got going.
Oh, of course. I
But,
love that. That's
yeah.
fun. That's crazy, though. The price of
How
jeans.
about color TVs?
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine, especially with the
I
technology.
imagine people, at one time just had one television in the
Yes.
house that everybody gathered
Now
around.
they
I'd
got one
say-
in the bathroom.
I say
All
that
right.
it was probably a couple $100.
1970 baby boomers, $450,
Wow,
which is
okay.
the equivalent of $3,000 today.
Wow.
Gen X, $300. Uh-oh, did they come down a little
Yeah,
bit?
maybe.
Millennials, $250.
Really?
Yes. This is one of the only ones that there are negative percents.
Really?
But how about Gen Z? $300 again.
Interesting.
So from boomer to Gen X, a negative 33%.
Hmm.
The technology dropped the price and they started outsourcing it.
Oh, that's so
Gen
true.
X to millennial, 16% negative.
Okay.
Millennial to Gen Z, up 20%.
Oh. That's interesting because I know that
That's one of the few negative
Yeah.
percentage ones that have come out. And
because
it's technology.
because I remember when CRT TVs were like a big thing. That was like the only thing you could get, and then there was a brief window where like plasma,
Yeah,
and
plasma,
LCD,
really plasma.
Well,
I
yeah.
remember those. Those were expensive.
and those were
though.
expensive, and those were nice, and they kind of pushed the needle forward. But once LED technology came about, you could get like a 50, 60-inch TV for $300-400.
Now, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they've been now. Of course, 8K has been
Oh,
in
gosh.
store. Now, I'm seeing things with 16K.
It's so
I'm like,
you
ridiculous.
can't see that.
I'm
don't
like,
need that. Yeah.
You can't see that. 4K is too much for the human eye to see. What can you see? 35 frames per second? That's all your eye can see.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, look, housing. This is a good one. Everybody, talks
Oh,
about housing.
yeah.
1940, the median home price was $2,938.
I wish that I could buy a house for
And
$2,000.
you could buy it on Sears catalog and
2000
have it delivered to your
No
house.
way.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah,
In peace, Sears.
yeah.
2024, $420,000.
Yeah.
In 1970, $17,000. And in 2000, $119,600.
Yep.
Okay, so I have that percentages too, if I may.
Okay.
From boomer to Gen X, prices increased 197%.
Wow.
From Gen X to millennial, they have increased 179%. And from millennial to Gen Z, 111%.
Okay.
So slide this in, rent.
Mm.
Boomer to Gen X, 313%. Gen X to millennial, 78%. And millennial to Gen Z, we kind of come up a little bit more, 84%.
You're not wrong with those numbers like you were talking about between the boomers and Gen X's. There's like a large percentage jump in these numbers where...
Because people had money.
Yeah.
Women were going to work. Okay. So now they said, okay, we got men and women working.
Yep.
We can charge them more now.
Right. More people got more
Here's
money.
a movie ticket.
Oh, my God.
1950,
I got that one too.
1950, 46 cents.
Get out.
In 2024, this is just a national average of $11.75.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I took a friend out to a movie, and it was 20-something bucks.
And that's just
not the ticket that
that's
gets
just
you.
the movie ticket.
Yeah.
Popcorn,
That's
the
not-
drink, and the candy.
I
That
didn't
really
get any of
gets
that.
you.
It was $20 for tickets, and then then she got the snacks because I was
And you
like,
spent more on the snacks than you did the tickets.
she
didn't
probably put about the same.
you? Okay.
I think we both left spending probably 40
So
bucks.
again, boomer to Gen X, 172% increase. Gen X to millennial, 87% increase. And millennials to Gen Z now, only a 16% increase because you have so much
Yeah.
in the streaming market now.
Oh, yeah.
They can't raise the prices like when, in Baton Rouge at one time they had, what was it, the mall, Bon Marché, and it had 44 movie theaters in it.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. What was it? What was that called?
Talking about the Bon Marché twin?
No, they in Bon Marché Mall.
Yeah, I know
they
the
had-
one you're talking
They
about.
called it something. There was some name. Here comes that freaking brain damage again because I spent every Saturday there. We knew the manager, and my best friend and I would go watch. He would make us pay for the first two movies,
Okay.
and then they had a game, arcade there, and so we'd go all Saturday. And we'd watch movies all day. Our lunch and dinner was popcorn and candy because he knew we'd be spending money on that. And Spaceport.
Right.
We'd play in Spaceport all day. But there was a certain name for that movie theater because there was
I know the one you're talking
there
about.
was so many of them. Now, it wasn't like these big, massive theaters they have today. So, but it's only from millennial to Gen Z, it's only 16%.
Well,
The
here's
only thing I found was Bon Marché Twin Cinema.
yeah, that's the one I
But it
remember.
was- it
It
had
was something
something
else.
else.
Yeah,
It
it
was-
was another name there.
Interesting.
Here's one: phone bills.
Oh.
In 1960, your phone bill on average was $3.50.
Really?
By 1990, which included a landline with long distance, your average was about $34.
Okay.
In 2024, it's now $75 to $125, and that's your mobile plan with data. So
Right.
just shows how different.
Yeah.
College tuition. That's people talk about college all the time. 1970, $394 a year.
That's wild.
In 2024, it's $10,500.
Yep.
So 4-year college tuition.
Okay.
Boomer to Gen X, 380%. Gen X to millennial, 277% increase. Millennial to Gen Z, 36% increase. Now, I've got one close to the heart of a lot of Americans that I think actually it's a telling thing, but this is very close to the American public.
Okay.
A 6-pack of beer,
Uh-oh.
$1.98 in 1970.
Okay.
$4.80 in 90, $7.50 in 2010, and $9.03 in 18.
Wow.
So that's a 142% increase from Boomer to Gen X, 56% increase from Gen X to Millennial, and a 22% increase from Millennial to Gen Z.
That's wild too.
I mean, think about that.
$10 for a 6-pack.
And another one, and I'm actually kind of surprised at this one, cigarettes.
Okay.
Because cigarettes are dying.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cigarettes are kind of dying. 47 cents in 1970.
Wow.
47
For like a
cents.
pack, like a
For
carton?
a pack
Oh,
of cigarettes.
Wow. Okay.
$1.60 in 90, $4.50 in 2010, and $8.23.
$8.
Yep.
Jeez.
And I think some of them are even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 240% increase from Boomer to Gen X, 181% increase from Gen X to Millennial, and a 77.78% from Millennial to Gen Z. I mean, this is percent increases.
Yeah.
So when you say 100%,
Yeah.
you just doubled the price.
Of course, yeah.
And some of these are even more, you know, this is fascinating.
Some of those
stuff.
were almost 200%.
Yes.
So that's...
Oh, I've got some 300%, like a hospital stay.
Oh yeah, I'd be curious on that one.
Hospital stay. Let me, oh shit. Because of my brain damage, I got to do all this paper shit now. All right, hospital stay. The average hospital stay in 1970 was $70.
That's wild.
Okay, that's per day. Gen X, roughly 1990, was $300. Millennials, $1,300.
Yep.
Gen Z, $2,500.
What?
So here's your percent increases.
No wonder why the whole
Boomer to Gen X is 329%.
Wow.
Gen X to millennial is 334%, and millennial to Gen Z is another 92%. You got to think about this too, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is increases from each generation.
Yeah, right.
So from Boomer to Gen X, they increased it 329%.
Crazy.
From Gen X to millennial, they increased it another 334%, and from millennial to Gen Z is another 93%. Right. Yeah. So you're talking about 800%.
More than doubling. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, 800 would be eight, you know.
Yeah.
That's just crazy to me. You know, doctor visits, you know, the average on your doctor visit was $10.70, $30.90, $90 in 2010, and $150 in 2020, which is 200%, and then 67% from millennial to Gen Z.
Oh, wow. Just doubling it, and then just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
I don't know where this stops.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Great Reset.
What do you think? Yeah, well, that could happen.
We talked about that on this show. What if what is it called? What is it?
The Great Filter.
The Great Filter is the prices in the world. What if we can't get prices?
Or maybe we become addicted to junk.
There you go.
Maybe we become addicted to junk, and if we weren't buying so many things, maybe we would have some of this wouldn't be such a. I mean, there's some things though that are. It's one thing that kind of what I call the extras of life costs a lot more. Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about hospital stays.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
You can't generally control that,
right? And I think some of that too is like insurance things, like insurance and that kind of stuff.
That's what you pay.
Well, I know,
you have the.
I'd be very curious what would be the average cost of a homeowner's policy.
Yeah,
that would be something to look up.
I think whenever I don't mean to. I think it's going to correlate with everything is like the whole tariff conversation. Like whenever we were talking about tariffs and all that stuff and on China and how goods and commodities are, may not be able to make it into the country because of the tariffs. And people were complaining about like not being able to get things from Temu. I was like, I think it's kind of a good thing that we can't buy junk from Temu.
I don't know. I like Temu.
I know, but like it's all slave labor, like Chinese junk, really. Like, I mean, there's probably some good things on there, but it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's like a lot of the stuff on there is all catered towards like making people feel like they're missing out on discounts.
Got your numbers. Baby boomers, 1970. The average annual premium was $90 to $100, which is roughly $2,000 in 2023. Gen X, $300 to $500. Millennials, $1,200 to $1,500, and Gen Z is $2,200 to $2,600.
Gosh,
yeah, I'm looking at this average annual homeowners insurance premiums in the United States. In 1950s, it was about on average $30 to $50. Can you believe that?
Homeowners
policies
insurance?
were just basic, homes were cheaper, and the risk were lower. You get to the 70s, $100 to $150. More comprehensive coverage introduced. 1980, $250. Rising home values and inflation pushed the rates up. 1990s, $500. Coverage expanded. Risk like natural disasters were priced in.
Yeah.
2000, $600 to $700. Tech and home automation began affecting rates. Still like to know how that would play into the cost of homeowners policy. By 2010, it's $900 to $1,000. More weather-related claims, fires, hurricanes, floods. 2020, $1,250, and then 2024, it's $1,500 to $2,000 plus. And some of the
crazy,
and these are just very general play averages.
Yeah,
there's probably in areas in our, and I know in South Louisiana, some of the insurance rates are just absolutely through the roof.
Oh yeah,
I mean, people just, I don't know,
of course,
you can afford
hurricane
it,
stuff.
but,
well, Miranda and I were going to look at a house, and our homeowners insurance was going to be $5,000 a year.
Get out!
And we're like, nope,
ain't no way.
So one of the things that makes that go up was now there are $14.4 billion events every year. Okay, that means a hurricane, blizzard, whatever.
Yeah, I see what
and
you
in the 1980s, there was $1.8 billion events come through. And then, you've got the escalating rebuilding and material costs. And premium growth often exceeds 9 to 12% annually over the last couple of years.
Jeez, that's crazy.
I mean, as I said, I don't know where this stops, because I mean, eventually, people are just not going to have the money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it blows my mind the way I see some people live, and I knew they live heavily in debt.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess you do what you have to do, and some people are not willing to live a simpler life. They kind of want all the nice things, so they.
Mm-hmm.
They rationalize it. They rationalize it, and then they live with it. There's some people who don't care about living in debt. Yeah. They really don't. Yeah. I mean, so they can sleep just fine. I couldn't. But
I've met people in my age bracket that it's their default is you have to have a car note. Like I don't think they comprehend the fact that you can buy a used car and not have a car note. It's. Well, there's young people.
It's instantaneous. Everybody wants the dream home, the dream cars, and all the stuff at 22 years old.
Right.
When our parents had to work 20 years, 25 years to get the dream home they wanted, to put mama in the good car, and daddy always had, the beater car because you wanted mama to go somewhere and not have to break down.
Right.
That was the plan.
Right. And
you had a plan for that. Now these kids today, they just got to have it all right now, and they don't want to work for it.
Well, and I think what I'm saying is like the people that I'm talking about don't comprehend that the only thing that they know is to go to a dealership and purchase a car, put a little bit of a down payment on it, and then have a car note.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. It's acceptable to them to have that note,
right?
Because
I'm not. It was sounding like you were saying they don't want to work for.
No,
what I'm saying is they I don't think they comprehend that you can buy a car outright and not have to worry about a car note.
But that's what I'm saying. Dad had the beater car.
Right.
You paid off Dad's car.
Yeah.
Then you bought another car.
And you traded that in.
Right.
And got the nice car for mom, and then Dad drove the beater car.
Right.
No, I'm 100% agreeing with you. They're accepting lifelong debt,
right?
Because they want everything now.
I see what you mean.
Because they got to have it all now, so you wind up with a home note, and then one or two car notes, and that's acceptable.
Right.
And then get the credit card out. Put the credit, and we
Right.
found out in COVID. Well, that's what I'm saying. Hey, put the groceries on the debt card. Put the credit card. Put this on the credit card.
Yeah,
and they live in debt. And that's acceptable to them because they want it now. Where back in my generation, you had a plan. My dad used to call it his 7-year plan. He had a plan. We would get something, but it might take 7 years to get it. Mom and dad started off in the little house that you could, it's a cheap used car now.
Right.
And then they worked and then got a nicer house at the end. And of course they split, but the plan was, you had a plan.
Yeah.
Nobody has a plan anymore.
I think when it came to how, I just think people were more comfortable. I think people were okay with living in what we would consider very modest dwellings
Sure.
for their entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, now people don't want to do that. They want the nice home.
Well,
they're willing
yeah.
to go into debt to have that. And it's just, I think just people in the past, they didn't. I mean, I just think there was just more of a I'm fine in this little house and I'm okay.
Right,
I mean, so this is it. It's our desires have changed. I think it's our wanting more and more and nicer and nicer has also driven costs. Whereas in the past,
because they know people are willing to pay for it.
To pay for it. I'm willing to go into debt. I'm willing to go take a loan now. I'm willing to put money on a credit card or whatever the case may be.
I agree 100%. I was completely agreeing with you on that. I was trying to get down into the weeds a little bit on why maybe.
I have an older used truck that like it has its problems, and I wish I could really get a newer car. But I realistically can afford like a new, especially in today's day and age with my current employment. I don't think I could swing like $400, $500 a month, like on like a car note or something.
That's probably a low
that's a cheap car.
Note.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And I was like realistically,
you could probably, I don't know. It depends. I mean,
there's ways around it. But what I'm saying is,
there's ways. Let me throw this at you. There's ways around that. So you had a car. And you know what the note is, right? Okay, that's like what Miranda and I are doing. We're getting ready to pay off her fancy truck. So what we're going to do is for 2 years, we're going to continue to take that note and put it in the bank.
Right.
Take that note and put it in the bank. And when that time is over, we're going to take that and go put a down payment on it to knock the note back down to something manageable.
Reasonable.
Right. And what I was saying for my current situation is I could probably go a little bit beyond my means and find a car that I could afford and have a note on, but not paying a note at all.
It's sure fun right now, isn't it?
Well, exactly. It's like having that extra money to just like set aside for emergencies or whatever is like, yes, that car, it runs, it drives, it has its hiccups, it has its issues. My dad and I work on it occasionally. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I could put myself in a little bit more of an uncomfortable situation, but I'm comfortable where I am. I'm content with what I have, and I'll get a new car eventually.
You said something key to me too. That's really important that kids today don't see. You get to spend time with your dad to work on your car. That's something that you'll remember forever. That's something he'll remember forever. That's not important to people anymore.
Right.
Hey, I've got the new car. It's got a warranty. I'll just take it to the shop. I'd rather spend time with my dad.
Yeah.
I would rather get my hands dirty with my dad.
Oh, yeah.
I hope the same for Magnus when he gets of age.
Right.
Hey, I know he's got plans. He's going to be super wealthy and, all this.
Yeah.
But I hope he gets a beater car so we can work on it together one day.
I had that old 2001 Honda CRV that ran like a dream. And my dad and I we kept fresh brakes and tires and oil changed in it. I kept it filled up on gas as much as I could. That thing ran until I gave it to my brother, and then of course my brother basically
tanked it.
He ruined it, but that's neither here nor there. Whenever I had it, whenever my dad and I were taking care of it, that old Honda would just keep on going. It would take a beating and keep on going. And I was like, and it was such a fun time to work on that car with him. The same sort of thing. I saved up a whole bunch of money for my first few jobs. I think I probably spent $4,800 on that old Honda back in the 2000 teens, whatever. And that
was your first car?
That was my first car.
What was your first car, Jason? I'm just curious.
It was my grandmother's 1970 big green Chevrolet Impala.
There you go.
And you wish you had that car right now, don't you? Because it'd be worth some money.
I remember that. I drove that car I remember going to high school, and it had... eventually, my daddy took it. I just think back very fondly and brings back a lot of memories of, of course, at those ages, you're always worried about what your friends are telling you. And, of course, they were making fun of me because the car was not the most attractive thing from what was actually in the parking lot. So my dad took that car. He gave me a little Ford Courier blue pickup truck,
you
which
go.
had no AC in it.
Oh no!
So it was 2 windows, and the wind was my way of. My first new car was when I went to college. I got a Toyota Tercel.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So yes, I.
My dad had
remember
an old like maroon GMC truck that I drove around that he let me borrow before I purchased that car that was my own. And so I remember the same thing, and it had its own. I'd never driven a vehicle that big, and it was a big old red truck, and I was like, oh man, I still remember that. But yeah, the same thing. It was not the most prettiest.
Speaking of cars, and do y'all remember the talk? And I still think it's being floated a little bit. Is being able to write off the car payments,
Really?
the interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is, now I don't know if it was still part of the one big beautiful bill that that came out, but I did a little search on here, and it said a Market Watch article explains consumers can deduct up to $10,000 a year in interest paid on loans for U.S. assembled vehicles from 2025 to 2028.
Interesting.
Phasing out above certain income levels. Of course, it goes into a lot of stuff. So I do know, because I know I was having this conversation with my parents regarding this, because I'm going to be looking for a new vehicle, and I always buy new.
Mm-hmm.
I never buy new. I just don't buy used cars. I know the argument back and forth. I've had some people very fierce to say you're wasting a ton of money buying a new car. I get that. The current car I've had now, I bought new, and I still have it, and it's 12 years old.
Yeah, right.
So I look at buying a car from a long-term perspective.
Sure.
So when I buy things, I'm going to have it for a long time. So I don't mind buying new. I know I'm
right.
being.
You don't mind investing in it,
because I know I'm losing money when I drive it off the park,
Right.
out of the parking
You
lot.
lose half the value right there. But if you're going to keep it for 12 years, you got your money.
That's fine.
That's acceptable.
Yeah.
But people are, I got to have a new car every
5
3
years.
years.
4 years.
Yeah.
No, that's bullshit. You're wasting your money.
No, yeah. If you're one of those people got to have a kind of a newer car every. Then no, I wouldn't buy new, because then you're wasting a ton of money.
Yeah, Miranda said her ex-husband had to have a new car every 2 years, and they wasted so much money because that was his manhood.
Oh, I know. I know
was his
why.
manhood.
I think
But
I was saying the universal why.
do-
Why would you do that?
I'm like, really?
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I don't mind driving my beater truck knowing she's in the good truck.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about her.
Well,
getting
that's going to
back.
be nice when y'all get that paid off.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Less than 10 months.
Hey,
That's
there
great.
you go.
Well, that's
Less
always
than 10 months.
That's always when you're within that final
Yep.
year.
Oh, it feels good.
Yes.
That's like
Yeah.
wow,
And that's
okay.
that's what I was saying. I'm content with what I have. I think I have some money set aside that I could probably buy another used car with, that I think it could be a little bit easier to work on. So I'm thinking about it.
What kind of car are you looking at?
I think I really have enjoyed.
Or would you like an SUV, or would you want a car?
I probably would like a SUV of some kind, or
Okay.
or something. Probably a little crossover.
Let me tell you, what would be nice. Get you a little Kia.
Yeah. Kia. I've also again. There's other Hondas that are reasonably priced that I know I can get parts for really easily. That I've looked at. There's they make millions of Civics and Accords that I think I could probably work with. But there's a whole bunch of other vehicles in that price range that I think I don't have anything in mind right now. But I know my dad has a lot of Chevy and GMC parts, so maybe something in that ballpark. But who knows? So
I'm just buying cars, and I hate buying cars.
And
We
then-
could probably do a podcast episode
oh my gosh, yeah.
on buying a car. And
Yeah.
to me, it's probably one of the most frustrating
right.
experiences I will ever do is buying a
Oh.
car. Because every time
I always try to get
I
you.
walk away, I feel like I'm getting screwed. And I know I'm getting screwed, and they know I'm getting screwed. It's just what it is. I get that. They've got to make money. I understand all that.
I felt nasty leaving the car dealership.
It just-
I felt
oh,
like I had
yes.
to go home and shower. But I'm lucky now. One of my bestest and oldest friends is now the sales manager for one of the big dealerships in South Louisiana.
There you go.
So I don't have to kind of worry about. I don't have to feel dirty anymore.
Right, because you know you're going to be dealing probably from the invoice, and
I'll be all right. So when Miranda and I decide it's time,
Right.
we'll holler at him because they have dealerships that have just about every make and model that we want, and we'll probably get that nice little down payment. And I've got 2 vehicles, and we'll probably just trade both of those in,
Right.
and get Hottie Doctor what she wants,
Right.
and then I'll just take the beater truck because it'll be a beater truck after.
Right.
And get her what she wants, and then that way we can make sure she can get where she wants to. And,
Right. And to kind of also shift this conversation in a similar direction, I'm currently renting. I'm renting where I'm currently at, and it is a great price for the location.
Mm-hmm.
yes,
And I don't have the money for a down payment to purchase a house, and I don't think I could realistically find something right now that is equivalent.
it's not a good time to buy
It's,
a house.
it hasn't been for the past couple of years,
Right.
but the same sort of situation is I'm content with I know that it's not an investment. I know I probably should be thinking about that. But for right now, with what I currently have, I'm pretty content, and I'm hoping to shift, in the coming years and see what that looks like, and trying to be responsible with my money and trying to actually own some property. But
hopefully, maybe interest rates will come down a little
Right.
bit.
So-
Right now, I mean, I don't know with 30-year. I think they're around 7.5% to 8%.
Well, when that happened, when Miranda and I got married, we were talking about, we moved into the house she had previously,
right,
and we were going to find something for us.
yeah,
And the interest rate is so outrageous right now, along with these astronomical, home rates, because
yeah,
she's had the house for so many years, and the homeowners is somewhat,
worked out.
yeah, you can only raise it so much.
Okay,
But we went and we looked at a couple of houses, and we found out that if we were to keep the note the same, we would lose between $150,000 and $200,000 in the house.
wow,
So that means if we were basically going to go find a $400,000 house, that let's just say we're not in a let's just say if we were in a $400,000 house, we'd go to a $200,000 house to keep the same freaking note.
or yeah.
And that's just where we'll just
Yeah,
That's
just
right.
keep what you have.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's like for right now, I currently am in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and it's on a nice bit of property that I have someone that can help landscape and stuff with it. So like it's a nice, quaint little spot.
Mm-hmm.
It has its quirks. It's an older house, so it's like it's got its problems that need to get taken care of. That I'm working with the landlord.
But it has a great word.
Charm.
Potential.
Potential. Okay.
Potential.
Yeah, just to let you know right now,
Right, so-
Freddie Mac reports an average rate of 6.84%.
Okay.
It's about where a 30-year is right now. So right now it's at 6.84. So a 30-year mortgage costs about $659 a month in principal and interest for each $100,000 borrowed.
Wow. Okay. And see, the point that I'm making is that, like, if I was to buy something equivalent, just like what you were saying, if I was to pay the same note that I currently am, it would be a significantly smaller house.
Oh yeah.
Or it would be in a bad part of town, or be run down. That's what I looked at. I was like, if I was to have an equivalent house as far as like size, and even if I have a smaller yard, and it's probably not in the best part of town, like the price astronomically increases, and I'm like, oof, I'm okay right now. And let's not shake the nest up too much.
If you can hang tight,
Yeah.
I
So-
would hang tight right
Right.
now because
So-
I don't think the Fed is going to be dropping rates. I know right now Jerome Powell is
In a war with Donald Trump.
With Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He doesn't want him to have any success when it comes to that. But until
Right.
Powell leaves,
Why can't they remove him? I'm
think-
not familiar with that. Why can't they just say, bye-bye, your
because
services are no longer needed?
they're appointed for, I think, for 6-year terms, if I'm not mistaken. I have
Okay.
to Google that to see what the term of
But if he's the executive
the
manager of
Fed
the
is-
government, why can't we just fire him?
What is the position you're talking about?
the Fed chairman.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve Chairman. How are they appointed? I forget. They are appointed by, I believe, the president, but they are I think it's staggered terms, if I'm not mistaken.
4-year term, and I think it says that it should be up in May of 26.
Okay.
Okay, so he don't have much time then,
Right,
because
so
I guarantee you he'll be gone.
Yeah, he'll be out of there. So it's because I know Trump has asked him to reduce interest rates. Now, I mean, in defense, I mean, the idea of I can just arbitrarily just reduce the rate, the problem is you get the interest rates too low, and then that led to the inflation issue that led to a lot. So it's somewhat of a tightrope. Could they probably reduce it a little bit? Probably so, but they're playing politics right now.
Of course.
I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, he was a Biden appointee, if I'm not mistaken. If he's when was he appointed?
22.
Yep, right. So during the Biden presidency. So yeah, he's not going to do anything to try to help Trump, I can tell you.
Oh yeah.
So he'll do what he can, but right now is not the best time to buy houses.
Yeah. So I like it, and I've heard it before that it's never really a good time, probably. But I know that for me, at least, heading into my 30s, I'm trying to be more responsible about potentially owning. I would like to own a house one day. I'd like to at least work towards that, or at least put some money into escrow or something that I know I'm not doing right now. But like I said, I'm comfortable. I'm not. At one point in time, there was a point where I was living beyond my means. Mm-hmm. Living in Canada and trying to figure that whole situation out. Coming back here, has been a lot nicer. So I think that I'm comfortable, and I don't want.
So I kind of looked it up. The Federal Reserve is structured to be independent from political pressure.
That's why
the chair of the Federal Reserve is appointed by the president, but serves a 4-year term. So there is no legal mechanism for the president to fire the chair without cause.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he just can't fire him because he wants to fire him.
Interesting.
Which, that can work. That can be good and bad. I mean, right now it's not working for people who like Trump, and
he'll have somebody he wants for the last 3 years.
If the shoe was on the other foot and you had a Democrat president and you had a Fed chairman that was appointed by a Republican, and you can probably play the game back and forth with that.
So the smart thing to do in this point is, for President Trump to, when this guy's out in May of 26, find somebody that wants to serve roughly 3 years. And then his last day in office, appoint somebody else just in case he loses the next election.
Okay.
So then the next president, if it happens to be a libtard, gets 4 years of a federal chair, Federal Reserve chair that will be working against him.
Is Trump going to be able to run again?
No,
I didn't think so.
No, there's people have talked about him running, but he's never.
But that's just fear tactics. That
right.
This
I'd be honest with you.
I
think sometimes he just does it just to get. I think his personality is like, what, I'm gonna just do that just to get that.
Yeah, just
get
to
people
piss
talking
him off.
about. I can see that. I can see his personality and kind of projecting that kind of thing.
Stirring the pot.
He knows
he likes to drive people.
He likes to drive people crazy. So, believe me, it works.
Oh yeah,
because everybody's like waiting on bated breath of what he says and takes everything word for word, and it's just crazy. But it's just the world we live in.
Yes.
We have a lot of other issues going on in this country right now, and I even forgot to talk about my little vacation that I went on. I want to share some.
Well, while we're here at the end of the show, do you want to share
Well,
a little
I
bit?
just want to tell something
go
I
ahead.
had never seen in my life.
Yeah.
I got to see an actual sea turtle lay their eggs
Really?
on the beach.
Oh, wow.
How awesome.
You said it was how big? Like 4 feet?
It was like 3-4 feet. It was a huge turtle.
Oh, okay.
Across. It was massive.
Wow.
I mean, it's something I could have just sat on.
Right,
and
yeah,
just, just carried me down the beach if it wanted to. It was huge, but it's actually early in the season.
Okay.
And it was by chance. I actually convinced everybody to go out there because you got to go out there like after 10 o'clock at night. And nobody wanted to go. I was like, come on, let's go.
Please,
so we all went. And believe it or not, we come down the walkway, and lo and behold, we turned left, and right down the beach there was one
Wow.
digging
And
the hole
where was that at?
in Melbourne Beach, Florida.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, the peak of the season's like in July.
Interesting.
They said you can go out there. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 of them just on the beach doing their thing. Now,
Interesting.
you got to be careful because if you go up and they see you
Yeah.
with your light, they'll quit doing. They'll go back out in the water.
Yeah.
And I watched one because one got disturbed and hightailed it back out to the water.
man.
So I've got pictures of me walking with it as it's going back out in the water.
Wow.
But yeah,
I know that you can't disturb after the eggs hatch. You can't disturb them.
They're
'cause
like
they
golf
have to-
balls.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching them drop.
Yeah.
It was the funniest thing.
You can't disturb
But
them.
I mean, that's just the kind of stuff that you only see like on Discovery Channel. Or
Of
something like
course.
that.
That's a once in a lifetime
Yeah,
event.
so,
So.
yeah, I got to see that. So I was, great. It was a great experience, and of course, I love nature and seeing that. It's like, wow, I was very privileged. So it was all a great trip that we had. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
I had a fun trip. I have never been able to see something like that, but that definitely sounds like something that would be.
there's only certain places. I mean,
I know,
where you can.
I didn't think that it was
turtles.
in Florida, but that's. I mean,
Oh yeah,
I'm
on
not
the
surprised.
Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. I never actually been out that way. I've always been in the Gulf.
Yeah, and then, for us around here, that's usually where you go.
Of course.
The ocean the Atlantic Ocean is quite different.
Oh yeah.
Even though it was quite calm, surprisingly. We'd go out there and the water looked like it was just a gentle swimming pool.
Nice.
And it's the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, if you go straight from here, I think the next stop is like Africa or something like that,
So,
But
and
or
like-
maybe southern part of
Yeah.
Europe. I don't know exactly
Was,
where it lines up, but yeah.
Was the weather nice out there?
Yeah, it was nice. It supposedly they were worried about. I was talking to my family that was because it looked like they had been getting a lot of rain out there, and they were
The past
worried.
couple of days we
They
got a
were
lot of
worried.
rain here.
They were worried, but yeah, it ended up turning out very, very nice. So
Interesting.
we had a great trip. It was always nice. They were great.
Do we know?
Great
I
hosts.
don't mean to derail this, but like, do we know anything about like hurricanes like coming? Like, is the season? I know
No, the
we're in-
season started.
I know.
June
I know this-
1st.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
so the
Okay.
season started. So I think they predicted above average, if I'm not mistaken.
And they were
Interesting.
trying to scare everybody a week ago, saying, "Oh, one's coming. It's going to hit
Okay.
Louisiana," and crap happened.
Okay.
So they're trying to scare
the
everybody.
The fact of the matter is, you live in a part of the world that
Oh, yeah.
these is where Mother Nature
Oh, yeah.
sends these.
Oh.
It's
I know-
just like if I lived in California,
Oh, yeah.
the chances are there's probably going to be either earthquakes or
course.
wildfires.
Well, hold
I mean,
on. Yeah, I was as soon as you said that, I was thinking, say they did a study of the American continent,
Okay.
and they found a space where nothing has actually happened. No blizzards, no tornadoes, no hurricanes, no earthquakes, where nothing has happened in America. And it was about as big as our studio table.
Okay.
So no matter where you go,
Yeah.
something's going to happen.
Of course.
And that's why insurance rates are the way they are.
I just
So-
like to stay curious about it because I know we've talked about it in the past a little bit about the whole surface water temperature and how it affects on different sides
Yeah.
of this. Anyways, just is all curious stuff.
I hope
so.
everybody enjoyed the episode.
Oh,
And,
yes.
I thought it was fun to
Fun
kind
little-
of reminisce about some of the
Yeah.
things that what we spent money on and how
Exactly.
much, and probably at that time we thought, man, that's a lot of money,
Of
type
course.
of thing. But it's just gotten crazy.
Yeah.
But
If you want to reach out to let us know what you think about it, we have comment sections on Spotify and YouTube. We also have the website, retrospectpodcast.com.
Retrospect podcast.
We also have the email address, getoffendedtogether@gmail.com as well, if you want to try and send us your more long-form responses. But anyways, besides all that, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
goodbye, everyone. God bless.
So as we wrap this up, let's ask the obvious question. Have things really gotten more expensive? Or have our priorities shifted with time? Sure, houses, healthcare, and college cost way more now, even after inflation. But we've also gained access to global communication, advanced medicine, and tech that boomers couldn't even have imagined. Maybe every generation pays for progress in different ways. The boomers built stability. Gen X powered the pivot to tech. Millennials carried student debt. And Gen Z, they're adapting to a new kind of economy altogether. But here's the kicker. While the stuff we need has become harder to afford, the things we want have become more accessible than ever. That's not just economics, that's culture. And it makes you wonder, what are we really investing in when we talk about the cost of living? And what's the real price for what we're willing to pay? For convenience, comfort, or a shot at the American dream? Thanks for hanging out with us today. You're absolutely the best. Peace.